Hello and good morning. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation podcast. And by the way, I said good morning, but for my guest, it's actually good evening. So I guess it really depends on where you are in the world and where you are watching from. Well, guys, listen, we've got a great show today. I'm super excited to have our guest. Let me introduce her. Regina Huber is the CEO of Transform Your Performance, where she coaches bold, heart-centered leaders to step into their full potential and create lives filled with freedom, power, and peace. With a rich career spanning 5 continents, she draws on experience from leadership roles at BCG and entrepreneurial ventures in Argentina, Brazil, and the US. Regina is a transformational leadership coach, multilingual speaker, and author of Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, and Living My Freaking Amazing Life. She created 5 signature coaching frameworks and hosts the Rise to Lead podcast, inspiring leaders worldwide. Regina has spoken and led workshops across the US, Africa, Latin America, Asia, Middle East, and Australia. She's been all over the place and previously hosted the TV show What's Your Spark? I like that name. A true global citizen, she's passionate about travel, adventure, and dance. Regina, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jason, for having me on. I know we've been planning this for a while, so I'm
We
now
have.
here. That's awesome.
We are here. It is time. So tell me, how's life been? How's everything going?
Pretty good, pretty good. And by the way, I've never been to Australia. That was only online. So I want
Oh,
to
okay. All
announce
right.
that. So I haven't been everywhere in the world. I could still do that, right? Yeah, life has been good. I've been splitting my time between France and the US. So in the US, New York City, where my business is based, and Miami for the most part. And yeah, lots going on, lots going on. As always, I keep busy. And how about you, Jason?
I am doing amazing. I'm excited to be back doing the podcast again. I took a year hiatus to care for my wife, and just so everybody knows, she's doing well and she's doing great. Busier than ever again. Unfortunately, she has a cold right now, but she's resting at home and she's probably watching. But yeah, life is good. My kids are growing up way too fast. My daughter's getting ready to graduate college in just a couple weeks. So we're excited about that. My son will finish his junior college and get ready to transfer soon. So, yeah, between the martial arts and being involved in our community, I am definitely staying busy, just as you said. So, man, we got a lot of questions today, and I want to remind everybody that if you're watching live, if you want to ask questions, please just put them in the comments wherever you're watching, whatever platform you're watching from. And of course, if you'd like to share this video while you're watching, that way we can get some more eyes on it as well. That'd be wonderful. So go ahead and comment and ask any questions you like. My first question for you, Regina, is going to be, you describe your work as helping people become thriving leaders. What does that look like in real life, and how does it differ from traditional leadership?
Well, Jason, I've created the Thriving Leader Formula as a fundamental framework for my one-on-one leadership coaching programs, right? Because my clients want to know what the coaching could look like, and there's of course a lot included. So it includes a lot of different concepts and content because every client is different and
Hmm.
comes with different expectations, desires, and needs. And the framework gives us a potential, gives my clients an idea of what it could look like, right? What we could address. So what we can we work on, and then we organically, of course, pick and choose what's most relevant and most beneficial for each client, for each
Hmm.
individual, and sometimes what's most urgent. And
Hmm.
then we go to other pieces of it. For example, we could work on transforming your career and leadership goals into a powerful vision, for example, right? Or I could help my client up level their leadership skills, their leadership of self and others, as I like to say, or their communication skills, their negotiation skills, whatever it is that they think they need.
Hmm.
And then, of course, it's also about bringing down stress levels. It's about taking good care of oneself as a leader.
Hmm.
And there's so much that really flows into the thriving leader
Hmm.
life, right, Jason? You probably can relate to this. So there's an overview of all of that's included or theoretically included on my website on the frameworks page if people want to look that up. And there's of course much more to it than I could ever write on that because
Right.
it depends so much on each individual, and it also evolves over time. So what I do want to say is my coaching approach is very holistic, because while we oftentimes split our lives up into several different categories and areas, right, so that we can conceptualize when we talk about our life is actually in reality a holistic phenomenon. So it's not really possible to split it up. It's all connected. And
Hmm.
while somebody might come to me for a promotion because they maybe can't do it on their own or whatever, and we work together, we may, of course, end up working on other things as well because everything is related. And then they might actually walk away improving their relationship with their romantic partner or with their family members. And that's always a nice side effect.
Do you have an ideal client, people that you're looking to work with, or is there, a specific area that you really specialize in?
Yeah, so there's leadership coaching on the one hand, and then there's my new category, which I call freedom coaching, which really is for anyone. Now, in the leadership coaching arena, I typically work with employees, leaders in organizations, or else business owners with teams, because they might have a need, of course, to improve their team leadership, right? So
Hmm.
these are the two main profiles, I would say, for that part. And then freedom coaching, I call it freedom coaching because I have just had a lot of requests also from other people who didn't necessarily want to work on their careers or on their leadership, but they wanted to maybe work on other areas such as, I don't know, their wealth or their well-being. And I wanted to also create an offering because it's really part of everyone's life anyway, as I said. And I just added a new methodology last year, which I have been studying, and I always then make it mine. So it's not necessarily only that, but I did find a very powerful methodology last year that I have been applying to myself, and also now with some new clients who wanted to specifically do this, where we go very, very deep with not just mindset, but also with everything that has to do with really gaining greater freedom, power, and peace.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that you're talking about the well-being of
Mhm.
oneself, and you brought up the topic of stress relief. I mean, in my career, it's kind of a built-in, when we get to hit things and hit people, that's a good stress reliever. But when you're talking about stress relief and you're talking about helping people with their well-being, what kinds of things are you talking about?
Well, it's so when we talk about stress in general, I mean, we could do that in many ways, right? For it really also again depends on the individual.
Hmm.
Because if I thrive in movement, which would be my case, for example, then I could easily relieve my stress through dancing, through walking, through biking, But if somebody is a completely different person and has completely different energy and personality, then maybe for them it's in meditation or in just taking a nap or in breathing. I mean, breathing is always a great tool. The methodology that I have recently added on has a very specific way of breathing that we on purpose actually don't call a technique, because it would actually be the natural way of breathing if we hadn't unlearned it. And that is a way to really come back into the present moment where we find our power, where we find our freedom and our creativity and all the good stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Second question. You've lived and worked across 5 continents. How has that shaped your views on leadership and personal transformation?
Well, it's definitely given me a lot of different perspective, as you can imagine, right? And so I feel like I have a bigger, um, like a table of options, right, that I can pick and choose from. And this experience in several different continents and in different language zones and countries has widened my horizon and contributed to my personal adaptability, of course, because in a way you have to adapt when you move somewhere and not just travel there for a week's vacation at a hotel. That's very different, right? So yeah, and it's helped me really to gain a greater understanding of people from different backgrounds and cultures. And so my one-on-one coaching, and that's really been beautiful to watch. I've always organically drawn very diverse clients for one-on-one coaching, which I personally enjoy a lot, because I like different. I like to see different things. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
my natural curiosity. So I do have certain, I think you also touched on leadership in your question, right? So I do have my views on leadership that certainly transgress all borders, that could be valuable or relevant in anywhere, valid anywhere. Although there are always local factors that need to be taken into account, of course. So when we want to apply, for example, certain paradigms, and then we need to consider how they can be implemented in a specific environment, right? Because there are different circumstances, but that doesn't mean that they cannot be used. And my personal transformation, of course, has been greatly influenced by living in different countries and language zones, speaking different languages. That alone is very enriching to me. Why is that? Well, because not just because I love language, it's also because language alone can have a huge impact on how we think, right? And that's why it's also used so much for manipulation and for indoctrination purposes. That's the not so nice side of it, but everything has always the two sides. So for me, the centerpiece, when I move to a different place, or even when I go to, as I have done several times in several African countries, go for example, South Africa or Uganda or Rwanda for a month or whatever, or Cameroon, then what's really important to me is that, yes, I need to adapt, but I also, while I adapt, I want to stay true to myself and true to who I am. Right? It's not because I move somewhere that I'm becoming a completely different person. And the beauty of it is that I can really go and watch and observe and see, okay, what am I going to filter out that I want to adopt for myself and what not? Because as you know, cultures have some great beneficial aspects on the one hand, and then some very limiting aspects on the other. So it's really important to use one's discretion and see, what serves me, and what do I want to adopt according to my own preferences
Right.
that's aligned with who I am.
And so what would you say are, because you've traveled, many different places, right? What would you say are some things that are common across the board, both positively and I don't want to say negatively, but like what kind of challenges do you see that are across the board, but what kinds of benefits or what kinds of strengths do you see across the board as far as leadership goes and the people you work with in the different continents? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges are always to really to engage your team, to keep your team happy and productive at the same time. I mean, that's definitely a challenge that most leaders have. Also, to keep them inspired, to because leaders want to bring out the best in their teams, and that also, of course, requires to delegate effectively. And a lot of leaders have issues with delegating in a way that it actually is growth oriented, also that
Right.
that it allows the team to grow with the individual team members. And yes, it is meant to take off workload off of your plate, but also to develop your team, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
always like several different goals that we have with delegation. So we want to figure out how we can do that,
Right.
for example.
Great. Great. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's talk about your books.
Mhm.
Or what inspired the title "Living My Freaking Amazing Life," and what does that phrase mean to you today?
Well, I talk about I talk a lot about choice and freedom, right? Because I really am a very freedom loving person. And a freaking amazing life to me is a life of choice,
Mhm.
a life that I can live in freedom, a life on my terms. And it's in a way, it's the life of my dreams. That doesn't mean it always looks perfect. And I wish, right?
Don't
but
we all?
again, it's not, yeah. So but it's not necessarily a life with every single desire fulfilled, although we want to get to a point where we do create more consciously,
Mm-hmm.
ideally. And this life may actually look very different for different people, because we all have different desires and different in a way expectations. Also, I call it, I prefer desires or different preferred experiences nowadays. And yeah, and that just looks different for everybody. So to me personally, it looks like movement, like moving from one place to the other, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
travel, like dancing and adventure. It's definitely always a part of my life, and it does need to be. It does need to feel authentic to me. A
Mm-hmm.
life that's like me, and that's aligned with my desires, with who I am. And if I'm, for example, in one place too long, then I get antsy, right? Then I need to move. Right? So I that's just part of who I am.
Right.
So yeah, some central words to me are always like choices, freedom, movement, dance, peace, fulfillment, inner power, right? These are core concepts to me. And
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, uh, the title itself. I mean,
Mhm.
when did this come to you? Like, did it just come to you? Or is this just something kind of you've always this has always been your theme?
So I used the term at one point, even also in my first book, Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, where I speak about something completely, or write about something completely different. Um, the term from freaking out to freaking amazing. And in my life, I've often gone from freaking out to freaking amazing, and back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And why did so that's part of why I chose this title. And it's also important to remember that the book comes with a subtitle, which is Create the Life That's Perfect for You Anywhere in the World. And again, it's the life that I have created for myself might not be perfect for you, but it's meant to be an inspiration to do it in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, people had said to me, Regina, you've had such an adventurous life so far. You have, it's your life has been so eclectic, so event rich. When are you going to finally write that book? And I was putting it off, Jason, again and again. I had actually started a few years ago, and I always hesitated to finish it because I was trying to figure out how to make the book meaningful to
Mm.
anyone who would read it, right? It's not just about my life. That in itself was really not enough, to me at least. So I was trying to figure out what the main focus should be, and it became a book filled with real life stories and inspiration, but also stories that always, again, resulted in lessons for the leadership of ourselves and others. And I also added those leadership lessons at the end of each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I even included a little poem, which I'm very proud of.
Nice. Very cool. The word perfect
Mhm,
stands out to me
mhm.
because I think that especially when we open up social media and we're watching what people are doing, and uh, you use the word inspiration as well, which I think that that's awesome that we can use someone's goals and someone's dreams as inspiration, but at the same time, someone else's goals and dreams aren't always my goals and dreams. And so that word perfect sometimes makes it very difficult for people because they think that they should be doing something instead of searching for what they enjoy doing and what really fulfills them, right?
Yeah.
And so that really just kind of stuck out to me as you were, talking about the title and talking about the themes. And I just think that that's important for us to remember, that not everything is perfect, and not everything that someone else is doing is perfect for us.
Exactly. But here's the point. You are already perfect as you are. And that's also part of the point. Like, yes, we want to develop skills. We want to develop certain, whatever. We want to maybe work on our limitations and not even get rid of them, but to just really um, move through them and maybe transmute them. But here's the thing. That life that's perfect for you is a life that is aligned with who you are. It's not aligned with who I am or
Mm,
with somebody else thinks you should be. So
right.
that's why, yes, it's perfect for you. That's why also the you is in capital letters.
Absolutely. Hey, let's give a quick shout out. We have Nikki on YouTube watching. Hi, Nikki. Thank you for watching. If you have
Oh,
questions,
hey.
would love to hear from you. So please let us know if you have any questions. We're going to take a quick break for just a second here and recognize one of the sponsors who you and I are both very familiar with, the Connected Leaders Academy and Jose Escobar. Be right back.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Hey guys, I'm Jason Flame, Master Motivation Podcast, and thank you for joining us. That was the Connected Leaders Academy with Jose Escobar. If you have any questions about this amazing leadership program, please let me know. This is how Regina and I connected initially, was through this group. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. But we've been talking about, living my freaking amazing life. We've talked about working across 5 different continents. We've talked about thriving leaders. Let's jump into the next topic, and let's talk about, you've created 5 signature coaching frameworks. Can you share one that's had the biggest impact on your clients?
Yeah, and it's actually funny because just this morning I was creating a new one, a simple one this time.
Always
And
adding.
yeah, sure, because I was writing a new talk and I wanted to create something so that I could have a structure for the talk, and so it came about almost naturally, right? And it's more focused. This new talk is more focused on the freedom coaching piece that I mentioned earlier. And this framework, you cannot find that yet on my website. It's going to be added at some point. But you find all the different frameworks on my frameworks page of my website, transformyourperformance.com, if somebody wants to check that out. Now, I think the first framework, which was called or is called Powerful Leadership Transformation, or PLT, is actually the one that I want to quickly talk about, because with its 4 pillars, it is mostly about self-leadership, which, in my opinion, is really the basis of all functional, authentic, and sustainably effective leadership, right? And in
Mhm.
any settings, without any exception. So I'd say this is probably the most relevant one for my most of my coaching clients, and then there's some other ones that are great for like presentations, or for group programs, or for specifically working with leaders and their teams.
Mhm. Excellent. And tell us a little bit about some of the other frameworks that you've
Mhm.
created.
Yeah, so there's also the new paradigm leadership, NPL, framework, and that is also has 4 elements, and it's very much focused on how you work with your team.
Hmm.
They have some overlap because, of course, the mindset and the heart set, as I like to call it, also that flows into both. Somehow communication is always everywhere, but the powerful leadership transformation, for example, doesn't really focus that much on the verbal communication piece. It focuses more on the presence piece, for example. So yes, there are certain overlaps, but one is just more focused on the leaders themselves, and their own leadership development, and they're not necessarily leadership development of others so much as it is of themselves, which then of course has a ripple effect. So uh, it will have an impact on the team automatically. And then they can also, once they have mastered the concepts, then they can also, of course, pass them on. They are free to do
Hmm.
so. Mhm.
Right. Awesome. Very cool. Well, you talk a lot about heart-centered leadership. How do you balance leading with heart and still making tough business decisions?
Well, I get this question sometimes. This is not the first time. So first I want to say there's absolutely zero contradiction for me between the two. Okay. So I might even turn the question around. How can you make tough, so-called tough business decisions that are also successful and feel good without leading from the heart? I think that's actually harder.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because would it not be beneficial to use your heart in this context? And why do we even call these decisions tough? Right? So maybe if we change that word, we could take a little bit of the toughness away from it, and maybe it becomes actually less difficult. We also call these certain conversations difficult conversations or tough conversations. Why are we doing this? Right? It's just a side. It's not. I know there's a little deviation here from your question, but I think it we talked about language earlier, how language is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that alone can already take away some of the weight of those concepts, right? So maybe they could just become decisions. So but to come back to your heart centered question, um, so the heart and the heart brain, as we sometimes also talk about the heart brain, in so for example, in neuroscience or in other methodologies, we talk about the heart brain and the head brain, for example, and the gut brain as well. But let's
Mm-hmm.
just leave that aside for a moment. So the heart and the heart brain holds a lot of wisdom that is not available in our intellectual brain, uh, in our head brain, right? So one of those treasures that we also find in the heart, and the wisdom is more like that specific you wisdom, that personal wisdom that you have acquired over a lifetime so far, right? Or maybe many lifetimes, depending on how you understand that. So um, that's one piece, and we want to access that too, and not just the intellectual part. And then in the heart is also where we find intuition. And I believe that intuition is highly underrated in business because it's actually our true voice. And we don't always remember how to listen to it, and we doubt it too much because we haven't practiced it enough. But it's really worth doing that. So we also have seen, even also in public situations, not just in our little world, that so-called facts often turn out to be not to be facts at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they are really just what we believe to know. So I think there's value in bringing our wisdom and our so-called facts and all the due diligence and all of that together, in especially when we make decisions that aren't our everyday decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, in general, when we combine mindset and heart set in business, it just usually leads us to more preferred results because they are better together.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know what? One other thought that comes to mind when I think about heart is so-called tough decisions, they often require courage. Where do we find courage? In our hearts. In our hearts, we find fear usually, right? And fear's in the mind, courage is in the heart. And last but not least, wouldn't also a portion of compassion be helpful in a so-called tough situation? We find that in our hearts, right?
When I read this question, and as I started hearing you talk in the beginning and throughout, when we're talking about using your heart and making tough decisions, I couldn't help but think about number one, my own children, right? I mean, there are tough conversations that we have to have, but they're not really tough because I care about my kids.
Yeah,
I want the best for my kids. I want to help them, avoid making the decisions that maybe I already know led me to a bad spot. We want to help, you know, cut that learning curve in half a little bit sometimes. Sometimes they got to face things on their own. But I thought about my kids first. Then I thought about my team and my martial arts school and my students. And there's a lot of things that happen in our business where we have to make decisions. But I have a team meeting every Monday night with our staff, and I always come back to our business is about people. Our business is not about the numbers. And, if I'm always focused on the statistics, which are important, um, I'm losing something. So I feel like if we always put people first, all of the things that you talked about, having compassion and all of these things make decision making so much easier because you do what is right because that's what's right, not just because I look at some businesses and they make decisions solely on the numbers, and man, how's that going to affect our people? How's that going to affect our staff? How's that going to affect the people that come into our business? Just those are some of my thoughts as I was listening to this whole thing, is that yeah, it's not always really a tough decision if you're putting people and using your heart, putting people first
right.
and using your heart.
And also, how does it affect you in the long run if you don't take your people into account enough, right?
No,
I think
absolutely.
that's an important question too.
Definitely. So what's a moment in your own journey where you had to speak up, stand out, and shine? And how did it change you?
Often. Well, Jason, I grew up as the shyest kid in the village, but I was very curious and adventurous always, although you wouldn't see that if you looked at me as a kid. I mean, if you see me in like a school photo, looking down, you would not see that at all. But I did want to see a piece of the world, and I had to find a way to move through this shyness and into a more confident place. So yes, I had to speak up. I had to stand up for what I wanted to experience, right? And I had to ask. For example, I when I worked at BCG in Munich, I was there for 2 years, and I knew I wanted to move abroad. That was why I started working at that company in the first place, between you and me.
Mm.
So I tried to get a transfer to the US. That was not possible right away. So what showed up on my horizon was an opportunity to move to Spain. I didn't speak Spanish at the time, but my colleague said to me, well, you can learn that. And at the time, Jason, it wasn't like today. We had that, I had that mindset, at least, that you learn languages at school and that's about it, pretty much, right? But then I changed that mindset, of course, very quickly. And then I said, you know what? You're right, Peter. so I moved to Spain, and again, I had to find a way to be heard in Spain, because Spaniards talk very fast and very loud. So whenever we went to lunch, I was like super lost in these conversations at the beginning, right? And I had to find a way to be heard, And at first, I was really just the listening person because it was too fast. It was like blah blah blah, blah, loud and whatnot. And then it over time it changed, and only 10 months later I was actually promoted into a leadership position. Totally unexpected. So, and then later, I had to often speak up and stand up for my businesses, like in Argentina, for example, in court when I was unduly fined by the city of Buenos Aires and I didn't want to pay that fine. And my lawyer didn't do his job, so I had to stand up for myself in court. And it was without preparation, but apparently I didn't do it too badly because I won the lawsuit against the city of Buenos Aires, thanks to speaking up and standing up, right? And then, of course, and you know that yourself, Jason, in your business and as a speaker, there's, I mean, if you don't do that, then you cannot be a speaker, right? So there are a lot of examples for sure.
Definitely. Well, it's interesting. I was also a pretty shy kid growing up. It was very rare that I would speak up and stand. I was actually afraid to stand out because of that, that fear of judgment or whatever. And martial arts was my tool that brought out that ability to speak up and that ability to stand up for myself. And you know, I have some funny stories about how I stood up for myself as a kid against a, a bully, right? And I really didn't even stand up to him. I actually ran away from him, and he tripped and fell. But the story went that I beat him up after, so nobody picked on me anymore. So it's just kind of
Oh,
interesting how that worked out, that I didn't even really do anything. But anyway, but martial arts is has really been the vehicle for me to find my voice. When I'm out teaching class, uh, if you don't have the ability to project your voice and to be able to command the attention of the audience or the class or the parents, things aren't going to work out too well. So it was something that I definitely had to develop over time. I wasn't born with it, and I find that a lot of us have dealt with that. But I still find myself sometimes being that shy person, being a little bit afraid to step into the spotlight, so to speak. Do you still find that you have challenges with that?
absolutely too. Yes. So sometimes we have to find that courage again or that confidence in the moment, and that's just totally fine. It's
Yeah.
totally fine. And I love that you mentioned martial arts because I also learned a lot about that in dance. So both in dancing by myself in certain dances or in partner dance. In partner dance, it can be quite challenging too, Jason, because sometimes if you really want to dance with the best dancers in the room, sometimes you have to walk across the entire dance floor. Well, you don't really walk across it, but to the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for women, because we're not supposed to ask so much anyway. So then you can, you walk up to somebody and ask somebody to dance and you get a no. And it can be pretty daunting at times to just step into that situation and be fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually I say no to dance partners.
And don't
Not
and
all
don't
the
we
time. I'm not mean, but there's certain things.
But don't we deal with that in business all the time as
Yeah.
well? That learning that hearing no isn't always bad, right? I
Mhm.
mean, actually, I just kind of have the mindset that the more no's I get, I'm just that much closer to a yes as far as sales and business goes.
Mhm.
So I'm never really afraid of a no. Um, your work has taken you around the world. How do you stay grounded and energized while constantly on the move?
Well, I just said one thing that I love to do is dance,
Dance.
right? I dance whenever I can. And it's, sometimes it's actually easier to find that while not traveling, but I have found ways to dance, like for example in places like Uganda, like Rwanda, South Africa. And what I usually do is I ask around, ask people, and people show me places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even in Rwanda, where I was teaching a workshop to a group of young they were no longer students, but they had just finished their studies, basically, and we had a lot of fun together. And at the end of the day, we started dancing, right? And then they also took me out dancing to a place where we did some Afrobeat dancing and stuff. And yeah, so also in Sweden, for example, I once, a few years back, I taught a workshop to Nigerian women, and we were dancing in between, dance breaks. And I love African dancing. So we were exchanging moves. Also in Johannesburg at a conference, I was doing that. There were some funny videos about that. And in Johannesburg, where I was also staying a little bit longer, sometimes I found places to kizomba dance, also in Rwanda. And, and just recently I was in Lisbon a few days, and I went, and I was there for my birthday, and I went kizomba dancing, and I met some people there that I could celebrate my birthday with. So, I actually only have moved to places where I could dance, although I didn't grow up with dance because I grew up in a tiny little village. However, although I did do some folkloric dancing when I was little, and that nobody knows. It's the first time, I think.
it sounds like, dance is a very important part of
Yeah.
of who you are. And
Yeah.
but you said you didn't grow up dancing. When did you find that dancing was your thing? Like that was the thing that just made you feel good, kept you grounded, made you comfortable?
Well, as you know, at the time there was no internet, so there was TV, but there wasn't like a huge offering of TV programming, and there were occasionally, I remember that there were dance contests on TV, and then of course that was something I liked to watch, and then there were also even ice skating. I like to watch that. Although I'm not an ice skater, I'm afraid of ice skating. I'm very adventurous. I do a lot of stuff, but I don't like to fall on hard ice. So I have tried a few times. It's just not my thing.
Not my thing either.
Yeah, and I did skiing in the past, but I don't even ski anymore. It's everything that has to do with cold and hard. I think it's not my thing.
No cold. Well,
So,
I'm from California, so I'm not a cold person either. Hey, we're talking about dance. I'm gonna make a quick cut to one more of our sponsors. Sometimes martial arts and dance go hand in hand, but here's Raptor Extreme Karate. Take a look. All right, that was Raptor Extreme Karate. If you're a martial arts school owner and you're looking for a great way to take your school to the next level or add some more excitement to your classes, let me know. I'll make sure to hook you up with Kevin Kowalczyk, and we'll get you going. Guys, my name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. I'm talking with Regina Huber with Transform Your Performance. And man, we've been talking about a lot of stuff. We just got done talking about one of her favorite pastimes, dancing, which was kind of the tie into the martial arts that you saw just a minute ago. And we've talked about so much more. If you've missed any of this interview, please go back, watch it from the beginning, and don't be afraid to share these videos with your friends and family. So I want to talk, Regina, a little bit more about working with leaders. You've worked with leaders in the US and Africa. What's one thing leaders everywhere could learn from across the different cultures?
well, one neglected leadership trait, or rather behavior maybe, is to really be present with everyone we interact with. To treat the person in front of us as the most important person in the universe at the time we interact with them, right? I think if leaders did that more, then that would make a huge difference to them. And it's actually interesting because I recently wrote a contribution for a publication by culturemanagers.com, and I titled it "Be Present in Every Interaction." And it was actually listed as number 1 of 9 strategies for reducing workplace stress. I was surprised that it was listed number 1, frankly, Jason, not because it's not valid or it's not important, but because people saw it as important. I think it's something that's so relevant and would be very beneficial anywhere in the world. And so that's something that comes to mind.
I'm blanking on who this quote is by, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Do you remember who said
Yeah,
that?
I don't either. And it's probably been attributed to several people, like
Right.
it often happens with those quotes. So,
Well, the quote came to mind as soon as you were
Mhm.
saying that, and I agree that it's very easy for leadership to lose that little bit of connection. And again, we were talking about before, focusing on the numbers and focusing on stats. But where the focus should and could be better is on the people. And like you said, the person that's right in front of you. I mean, this is what I love about the podcast. I've got one person to talk to. You're the most important person that I'm talking to right now, the most important person as far as what's going on. And I think if we did take some more time, I'm thinking about my students, I'm thinking about my kids, in those moments, making them feel, it's one thing to think about it and talk about it and try to do it, but actually allowing them to feel that they are important. I've been around some really great leaders, and some of them made me feel like I was just as important as them. And some of them made me feel like they were just taking a second to look like being a good leader and before they walk away, right? Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It also has to do with openness, in my opinion, to really
Mm-hmm.
be open to listening and to listen with your body and your mind and your ears and your face and everything, right? It's about being open, about being open-minded, about being curious, open-hearted, all the good stuff. So yes, first be open, and then of course then also use your discernment of what what you want to take on again.
Right.
It's not like you need to take on everything, but just like be present with the person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, a couple more questions. And guys, for those of you watching live, haven't had any questions yet. So please, if you're watching, let me know if you have a question. Or maybe I just have all the best questions. I don't know. But hopefully there's something that you want to know that we haven't covered. What's a common misconception people have about personal power or performance that you love to bust?
Yeah, so many people wait to be empowered by others, or they think they can be empowered by others, right? Why? I think it's because we use that word so much. It's thrown around all the time, right? So it basically has replaced words like help or support, which in many cases would probably be more accurate, because actually no one can empower you but yourself. That's very important to remember, because when you remember that, you actually find ways to empower yourself more easily, right? Because your power is already inside of you and it's limitless. It's a matter of understanding that, acknowledging it, and really tapping into this power. And again, this can be done most easily when we're present in the now moment. It requires practice for sure, right? But when you embody this inner power, then you don't depend on external power or power structures. You don't no longer depend on a power position, you know. Um, and I think that's just something that we can always fall back to, even in very difficult situations, challenging situations. That really remember that we have this power. So yeah, for me, presence and self-empowerment go hand in hand, right? And they can also then actually help you up level your performance.
Excellent. I love that. Hey, we got someone wanting to know your website. Anita is watching. Thank you, Anita, for watching. Can you tell everybody your website so that they can check you out?
Yeah, hi Anita, great to see you and great to see Nikki. These are two people I know. So it's transformyourperformance.com. Transformyourperformance.com. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. Hey, and now people are starting to pop in. There's Jose Escobar. What's up, Jose? Thanks for the message the other day. Sorry if I didn't get back to you just yet, but I will. Two amazing CLA leaders. Go, Regina. Awesome. Thank you, sir, for
Yeah,
watching.
awesome to see you, Jose.
Well, we're winding down into the last couple minutes here, and I just want to allow you to have this time to answer this one. If someone listening today feels stuck in their career or in their leadership journey, what's one action you'd challenge them to take right now?
Well, first of all, surprise, surprise, become present and reflect on what you truly want. So write it down, feel into it, check whether it's really what you want or if it's what you think you should want. So
Hmm.
if it's your true desire, then then that means that it's aligned with who you are. And we talked about this before to a certain extent too, right? So yes, also listen to your intuition. Your intuition is your true voice. It knows what's right for you and no one else but you, right? It's only for you to make your decisions. And once you have decided on what you truly want and you are pretty sure about it, then don't take a baby step. That's for babies. You're not a baby. Take a bold step, take a bold move.
There it is. I mean, that's it right there. Is take the bold step, right? And you use the word alignment, and I think that that is key because once again, going back when we were talking before, we look at the quote perfect life, and sometimes we think the perfect life or the perfect position or the perfect direction is what someone else might be doing. I was very I, I am so lucky. I shouldn't say lucky. I was blessed with learning what my calling was very early on. I mean, I know for 100% that I was put on this earth to do what I do, which is teaching martial arts and helping people grow, learn how to protect themselves, take care of their bodies, also be good leaders and be good in their community. I know that where I'm at is where I should be. Some people struggle with this because they're trying to do what someone else has told them they should do or what someone else thought they should do. But being in alignment with your values, your dreams, your goals. I mean, when I was a teenager, that's all I wanted to be was a martial artist. When I was younger, all I wanted to do was be a professional wrestler. I got to do that too. So it's like, being able to actually live out your dreams. And like you said, that takes making a bold move,
Mhm.
and not allowing the doubt in your head to say, I don't know if I could do, why me? That someone else can do that. You know, um, I think the make the bold move is
Yeah,
a powerful statement. So
yeah.
Regina, it's been awesome having you on the show. Is there anything else that you want to add or kind of let our audience know about? I know that you've given out the your website where they can check you out. Any information, anything coming up that you'd like to let
Yeah,
everybody
but
know about?
before I do that, Jason, I also wanted to add because some people might be a bit confused about what their big calling is or their big purpose. And I also want people to know that it's okay to give yourself permission to not know what it is right away and
Mm,
to find it out over time and also to change it. You don't it's not about making a decision for the rest of your life. Sometimes it changes. It doesn't need to stay the same for the rest of your life. It might, but it's up to you to decide that. So
mhm,
sometimes people think, "Oh, I'm making a decision now; it's going to be forever," and that's why they get stuck and paralyzed, so to speak, because they are afraid to make the decision.
mhm.
So that's also something that I just really wanted to add to
No,
that
that was an
extent.
excellent ad. Very, I appreciate you adding that.
Okay, so what's up for me? Well, I have my podcast, of course, Rise to Lead. Find it on Apple or on Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. I'm on LinkedIn and not all social media, but most. And you can find me there. Also, if you're interested in my career growth strategies newsletter on LinkedIn, it's free for you and available. I post there every week. There's always materials and articles going out. I write quite a few contributions and articles, usually for other publications. Just got an email before our live today of one of them being published again. I usually share those both in a list on my website and also on social media in social media posts. So just there's a lot. There's always plans in my head and in my heart.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll look forward to helping you share those and having you back on the show another time. We'll do an update. But thanks for being here today. I know it's not quite late yet, but it's getting later in the evening for you maybe. But guys, thank you so much for watching the show today. Do me a favor, please subscribe to the Master Motivation Podcast on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the things. And look forward to the next interview next week. We'll be back on Thursday again. So Regina Huber, thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to what you do next.
Thanks so much, Jason, for having me, and for everybody who's been watching and listening. So
All right.
appreciate you.
Thanks again. Guys, go out and make it a great day. We'll see you soon.